I'm stood on the ruined foundations of the church in Derwent Village. It has indeed exposed itself again in 2025, 3 years since the last time it did in 2022. So now I'm going to push on and walk the length of the reservoir, probably around about as far as the aqueduct, to also see what has been revealed up that end, and also from the dam and the plug holes. So to begin with, we stood right beside one of the plug holes of Ladybower Reservoir. You can already see how low that is, look. Levels are around about 51, 52% currently. And there's a lot of stone work that's been revealed, hasn't there, just here. What we can do is have a little walk around down here. Look, you can see how high that wall actually is, look. It must be about 3 times my height, but when you're on top, looking down, it doesn't look like that, does it? So that is the height of the plug hole and how much away from the water's edge it actually is. So let's see if we can pick out as much as we can and see what has appeared out of the water of Ladybower Reservoir, beginning with the search for Wood Lane just down here. So let's keep all eyes left for our first appearance of the abandoned Wood Lane. Down there, look, you can see the appearance of Wood Lane. This is where the road originally dropped down into Ashton Village. Tarmac's still there, probably in better condition than a lot of the roads that we go along today. And here's another view of it, look, dropping down into the water. You can just make out Ashton Viaduct, dead centre, and that would be the trajectory of Wood Lane below the remaining water. And for reference, I'm just on the bend, look, where the car park on the right in towards Heverdean. Wood Lane would come down like that and drop down into the hamlet of Ashton. This is the view from Ashton Road. You can just see Win Hill in the centre distance. So it's worth pointing out that Wood Lane, Wood Road came down there, and Ashton Village was just down there. There was also Ashton Railway Viaduct. It came across just down there, which was part of the Bamford and Howden Railway, which was used to construct both Derwent and Howden dams and reservoirs. That's a lovely view, isn't it? But very, very low levels of water. That's the way we're walking towards the former Derwent Village and Derwent Dam as it is today. So I've come down onto the edge of the reservoir now because there's a little bit of something to show you down here. Up there was Grainfoot Farm and the Grainfoot Brook. It flows down here, and it's a bit of a dam which is normally underwater right in front of me, directly above it, look. There we go. So that is where that flows into the reservoir as it is now, usually most times of the year underwater. But we have got this nice bit of stone walling, look, all the way along. It does appear that the brook does go underground a little bit just there, and it pops out on the opposite side. Just down there the water is coming out right at the bottom, and it looks like this stone wall is pretty much as it was 3 years ago when I last saw it. And across the top, look, looking over the edge, I'd say it's probably about 6 or 7 foot high at its lowest point. So one significant thing that has been revealed. Let's see what else we can find as we get closer to the site of Derwent Village. There's a gentle flow of water coming down, look. So that's nice to hear and see. Our first view of Derwent Village. Right, let's crack on and take a good look at what is showing of Derwent Village. So immediately, look, we've got the remains of this farm. Now, in all honesty, this particular piece of ruins, it generally shows itself every single year with it being so close to the edge, so you could have a really wet spring and summer. This bit would often reveal itself, but it's down there that we see our next interesting piece of history. Then opposite the foundations of that farm, we've got this beautiful old pack horse bridge. Now, it's looking a little bit muddy, but I'm gonna give it a go. Yeah, it's all right. There we go. How about that? So that's lovely, isn't it? And we've got this beautiful stream that is often quite raging up there in prolonged periods of wet weather when the reservoir is full or close to being full. That's nice, isn't it? A little bit of, is it iron oxide residue on the right? Let's go over the top and we'll have a look at the other side. And over the top we go, you can see where the street itself does flow down. You can also see an exterior wall there that would have been foundations to a building just above that we'll have a look at in a moment. If we pan you around and jump down again, show you the other side of this bridge. So we'll cross back over and I will revisit that side, the Derwent Hall side, in a few moments, but let's follow this around, and there are some more foundations, and it'll also take us to the ruins, I believe, of the lost church. So there was clearly something there. I don't think I cleared up what that was when I came 3 years ago, but a little bit of terracotta pipe and an inspection cover, again usually underwater, and it's stamped Sheffield. You just make that out. And dead ahead of us we have the ruins of the church. The church spire was on the right hand side. Further down below the water there is another bridge down there. It usually does reveal itself, but usually when the water is extremely low. And just beyond that is Derwent Hall remains. We're not going to get to see them today, I don't believe, or anything regarding that. But there was also, to the left of that, around about there, the bridge over the River Derwent. But for now, we've got the ruins of the church. Look, so the tower, that would have been right here. And it is pretty much all visible. Look, we can walk all the way around, which I will do in a moment. I believe we might even be able to get to see the dated keystone over there when we look in a moment. So, if you've never seen the church ruins before, that is something that you can see right now. And I've safely made it across. And if that brick's got any kind of stamp on it. No, unfortunately not. There we go, so that's where a lot of the bricks would have come from. Some noisy seagulls. Now I think this is the keystone just here. This large one coming up. And if I'm very, very careful, I can get down and show it to you. I hope. Yeah, there you go. So the keystone of the church is visible. Look, this is from when it was rebuilt. Because originally it was built in the 1700s, 1867. That's nice to see then, isn't it? That's the view looking back over towards Ashupton. Down there was the school, then the bridge, and then Derwent Hall. It's quite funny, you know, because it's like seeing an old friend you haven't seen for a long time. I spent that much time in here in 2022 documenting this area and the reservoirs. It's not, I wouldn't say emotional, but it feels warm, it's nice. So there we have it, the remains of the church, but there's still a considerable amount to go before we can see remains beyond those foundations. So it's back to the Packhorse Bridge. I'll cross over that and show you anything along the way towards where Derwent Hall was, and also end up at the waterhouses. Some further foundations, something square shaped just there, isn't there? And over here more foundations, as you can see right there, look, going just there. You may have just seen on the previous clip the road that comes down and runs alongside the village. Now we do pick that road up again, and it's just a little way down here. So there's the tarmac running down and following the course of the road down there. It was somewhere around about there. There was that secondary bridge, and that's looking over to where the school was. Walking over the brow away from where that tarmac was, Derwent Hall is still sleeping down there. The remains of Derwent Hall and the bridge that crossed over the River Derwent, flow of the Derwent, being on the left hand side. So absolutely no sign of Derwent Hall whatsoever. or the lover's seat, or the lover's chair, whichever way you call it. Got a few more weeks of dry weather for that then. Just up to the right of where Derwent Hall was, these ruins generally, again, tend to appear every single year. And if you are interested in what all of this used to look like and the history of these lost villages, Ashupton and Derwent, and the reservoir that flooded the ruins, I have made videos of these in 2022. I'll put a couple of links in the up next at the end of this video. In the meantime, I'm also going to be making an alternate version of those videos, like a feature-length version, looking into the history and covering it from start to finish, from construction up until present day ruins, and hopefully you'll get to see a heck of a lot more. So I'd love to keep an eye out for that by subscribing to the channel, and also if you're interested in anything else of a similar subject. I'm pushing on now to the former grounds of the waterhouses. We have a few more weeks to wait, hopefully, for Derwent Hall to reappear. That always looks like the remains of some kind of footpath going down there, but I can never be sure. The ground is quite cracked here, but it is dry. It looks like it could be a bit soft in places, but you can just see around here where all the greenery is growing again, because this part has been out of the water probably for a couple of months. So now coming up to the perimeter of the waterhouses buildings. I could put a bit of drone footage up right now from 2022, as this is going to be very similar to what it was back then, showing you what this arrangement looks like from above. So there you go, you've seen that, and now the waterhouses are just coming into sight. Again, I always seem to feel that these are some kind of pathway arrangements that were present from these buildings over here. And one of these such pathways do bring us over here, look, to what is the main building here. And it does drop down, look, so we can get in there. There'll be a lot of silt in here as well, so this room would have been exceptionally lower. There's a hole in the wall there. Maybe it was some kind of fireplace or stove. Can see down there, but it is just mud, so you're not missing out on anything there. And another bit here, so this probably demonstrates how much silt is actually in here, because I'm going to believe that this is the top of a window frame, so it could be about 5 or 6 feet of mud and silt. We can climb up on top, and again it looks as though there was some kind of doorway, look, just there, which we'll pass through, and I'll turn you around and you can see that first room that I was in fact stood in. Another one over here, very, very interesting again. Multiple layers of stone. So there's 2 different kinds of stone there, look. Smaller and then the larger block formations at the top. An old wooden post there. On the inside, you've got more of a traditional blue brick, again surrounded by further coping stones, and into yet another room, which was probably originally about as low down as the first one that we came into. Through the rooms and out the other side, and we head on over to the last part. There's the aqueduct there, which I believe this to have been some kind of dock or loading bay, with the steps going down, look. There you go. And around this side is a little bit muddy, but I'll be careful, onto this concrete platform all the way along. This is definitely worth coming down to, right next to the aqueduct. Just here, look, is a gate post, still with some old cast features in there, look. So there is in fact plenty to see, isn't there, if you was to come now? And this is probably the only opportunity you've got in the next couple of weeks to come and see it all. If you can bide your time, hold your nerve a little bit longer, and I would come in around about middle of September should the dry weather continue, which the forecast looks like it will do for at least the next couple of weeks. There'll be a lot more to see than what I've shown you in this video, but I hope it has been useful and gives you an idea of what to see if you come in the next week or two. And it does in fact answer a lot of those questions that a lot of people have been asking. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. There will be more documenting Ladybower Reservoir and the Lost Villages of Derwent and Ashupton in the next couple of months. But for now, stay safe and be careful when you visit these places, as it can be a little bit sticky. See you soon. Bye bye.